Now that we have a general idea about arrays, we will start understanding arrays from programming perspective. In this lesson, we will learn about how to declare and initialize a single dimensional array and access each of its elements. You can think of a single dimensional array as a row of numbered boxes. Each box can hold one item in it. Looking at it this way, we can say that an array is a group or a collection of same type of variables. You can have an array of int types, float types, char types, string types, and so on. Basically, you can create an array of any of the data types that Java provides, including both primitive and reference types. By rule, Java requires that all items in an array must be of the same type. An int array will always have all int values in it. A char array will have all char values in it, and so on. We cannot have an array in which the first box contains an int value, the second box contains a char value, third box contains a double value, fourth box contains a string value, and so on. You will get a compilation error for this. Java does not allow this, it will not work. We know how to declare and initialize variables. This statement declares an int variable a and assigns 5 to it. This is how we declare an int array ARR and initialize it with values from 1 to 6. In both cases, we start with the data type, then we write an identifier. We named our variable a and our array ARR. Like variable, name of array is also an identifier, and all the identifier naming rules which we learned in code blocks and tokens lesson apply to it. Then we have this pair of square brackets extra in case of arrays. This signifies that we are declaring an array variable, not a regular variable. We can place these square brackets at the end of the array name as shown here, or we can also place them between the data type and the array name like this. Both these statements are equivalent. You can use whichever way you like. Moving on, in the variable case, we assign a single value to a, as variables can hold only a single value. But to ARR, we assign an array which is a group of values. All the values in the array are separated by commas, and the entire array is enclosed within curly brackets. Now that we have seen this example, we can easily write the general syntax of declaring and initializing an array like this. Or, if we place square brackets between type and array variable, then like this. Here are a few examples of declaring and initializing arrays of different types. The first example shows an int array containing 5 elements. The next example is that of a double array containing 3 elements. This statement declares and initializes a char array named vowels containing the 5 vowels. The last example shows a string array containing 3 strings. The number of elements present in the array is called the size or length of the array. Size of ARR is 6 as there are 6 elements present in it. Size of consts is 3, vowels is 5, and fruits is 3. We now know how to declare and initialize an array. Next, let's look at how we can access the different elements of the array. Remember, I told you that you can think of an array as a row of numbered boxes. Taking our int array ARR as an example, let's visualize this array as a row of numbered boxes. To access an individual item from this array, write out the name of the array and the number of the box you want to access inside square brackets like this. This means give me the item in the array ARR sitting in box number 3. So it will give us this value 4. The term we use in Java to refer to these box numbers is index or subscript. So ARR3 means give me the item present at index 3 of the array ARR. The general syntax to access an individual element of an array is this. Taking our previous array ARR as an example, ARR0 gives 1, ARR1 gives 2, ARR2 gives 3, and so on. Notice that the first index in the array is 0. In programming, we start counting from 0, not 1. It means that value at index 0 is the first item of the array, value at index 1 is the second item of the array, value at index 2 is the third item of the array, and so on. Index of last element of the array is the length of the array minus 1. So, the index of the array ranges from 0 to length minus 1. We will use this a lot while accessing array elements within a loop. The fact that array index starts at 0 and not 1 is very important. Forgetting this is the most common mistake students make in arrays. In maths, you usually start counting from 1, so you are used to that. For example, to access the third element of this array, you will write this will give you the fourth element of the array and not third, as array index starts at 0. Index of each element of the array will be like this. Third element is at index 2, fourth element is at index 3, so ARR3 gives fourth element. Writing ARR3 when you want to access the third element of the array is incorrect. Don't make this mistake, otherwise you will lose marks. Third element is at index 2, so the correct way to access it is this. I will repeat this point many times in the course to make you remember. From your side, you also make a note of this. We learned that we can access an individual element of an array using this syntax. For example, we can access the second element of this array like this. ARR1 will give 2, the second element of the array. Here, this 1 inside the square brackets is called the subscript. This ARR is called subscripted variable, and this 2, which is the value present at the specified subscript, is called the subscripted value. So the definition of subscript is the index of the element in the array. Subscripted variable is the name of the array when it is used with a subscript to access a single element of the array. Subscripted value is the value of the element at that index. We have looked at a good number of array concepts. Let's now switch to BlueJ and practice them. This program prints the number of days in each month of the year using arrays. Let me execute it and get the output. Here we declare an int array month days. Each element of this array is the number of days present in the corresponding month. You can visualize this array like this. The first element 31 is the number of days in January. Second is the number of days in February, and so on. Next, we access each element of the array using its index to print the number of days in the corresponding month. So month days 0 gives us the first element 31, month days 1 gives us the second element 28, month days 2 gives us the third element 31, and so on. Again, I want to remind you here that index of an array begins from 0 and goes on till length of array minus 1. Here, the indexes of month days array ranges from 0 to 11 as length of array month days is 12. Now that I mentioned length, let me show you how you can find the length of an array. Remember, length of the array and size of the array means the same thing. I will use length and size interchangeably. To get the length of the array, write the name of the array variable, then the dot operator, then length like this. This will give us the length of the array. Let me comment out these statements for the time being so that we can focus on length. I will execute the program now. We get the length of this array as 12 as there are 12 elements in the array. Next, let's see how we can access the elements of the array using a loop. I will uncomment these println statements. I don't like these 12 println statements as writing 12 of them is a lot of work. I want to do it in a shorter and simpler way. Notice these indexes of arrays are going from 0 to 11. If I run a for loop from 0 to 11, then I can use the loop control variable of this for loop as the index of the array. This way, I will be able to print all the elements of the array using a single print statement. Let me show it to you. The loop control variable I is initialized to 0 as the array index starts at 0. It should go till 11, that is 1 less than the length of the array. So we will put the condition as I less than month days dot length. Month days dot length gives us 12. I should be less than 12, so I will increment till 11 and after that the loop will stop. I will be incremented by 1 in each iteration. Inside the loop, I will print the elements of the array like this. Let me comment out these lines again and run the program. We have successfully printed all the elements of the array using a for loop. But this output is not as pretty and verbose as the previous one. I want to get the same output as before, but with this simplicity without having to use 12 println statements. How can we do that? If I create another array to hold the names of the month, then I should be able to do it. Let me show you what I mean. I have defined another array month names to hold the names of the month. Now let's try to change our original println statement to take the month names from this newly created array. I will replace this 0 with I. Next, in place of this January, I will use my newly created month names array to get the names of the month like this. I will remove these statements. I don't need them anymore. Now when I execute my program, I get the same verbose output as before. By properly using arrays, we simplified this program to this. The indexes of these arrays, month days and month names, range from 0 to 11. What will happen if I try to access an out-of-range index like 12 or 13 or -1 or -5? I am trying to access the element at index 12, but month days array has indexes from 0 to 11 only. The program compiles without errors. Let's execute it now. The program executes, but when it comes to this line, we get a runtime error. The error is telling us that it is an array index out of bounds exception because index 12 is out of bounds for length 12. It means that the length of the array is 12, So the valid range of its indexes is from 0 to 11, and index 12, which we have specified, is outside the valid range. At runtime, Java checks if all the indexes of the array we are trying to access are within the valid range of the array or not. If it finds any violations, it throws this array index out of bounds exception. Accessing an invalid index of the array will cause a runtime error. So far, we have learned how to declare and initialize a single dimensional array and access its elements using loops. At this point, you will ask that all this is fine, but in our programs, we accept data from the user as input and work on that data. We don't always work on static data like days in each month or month names. Can I store and process the data user enters at runtime using arrays? The answer is yes, and we will learn about it in the next lesson.